Cécred launched today as Beyoncé's long-anticipated haircare line. Teased now for about a year, it already had fans buzzing about the launch and curious to see if it will repeat the same mistakes as her previous brands. So, now that it is fully launched, I want to go over its planning, reception, and competition to analyze if it's as doomed to fail as her previous brands. Cécred was first teased by Beyoncé on the 17th of May 2023 in this Instagram post captioned, "How many of y'all knew my first job was sweeping hair in my mama's salon?" Yet, the brand history is actually traceable all the way back to the 20th of June 2022 when the trademarks were filed for Cécred, covering all things beauty. However, with that said, I do believe the brand to have already been underway by this point, as the parent company, First Hawk Street LLC, registered several brand names and even logos for use with exclusively cosmetic companies at this time, including Bay Rituals, which Rituals Cosmetics ended up opposing. Fun fact. So, because they're all targeted at the cosmetics market, it's less likely that they were doing the usual celebrity thing of just trademarking every idea just in case, and instead was actually pretty well planned by this stage. But actually, aside from what was trademarked, it's the timing that's interesting, as it's exactly at this time that her sportswear label, Ivy Park, started to take a real nosedive in the reception of each collection following three main complaints. That it was inauthentic, didn't really connect with the Beyoncé brand, and that as a celebrity, Beyoncé didn't connect with her audience well enough to have an adequate celebrity factor in order to sell parasocially differentiated products. It's these three factors that are also important to view Cécred through, as these three main complaints are exactly the fears that fans have already started airing on social media when the brand was officially announced. Even some people in my comments over on my fashion channel voiced exactly this fear. So that's why it's particularly clever that in their first teaser of the brand in this Instagram post, it was noted that she connected the brand to something both very personal to her and that she did it in a relatable manner. So there's an attempt right from the very beginning to rectify the past problems in this future brand. It's a cleverly tackled part of the brand's world building that directly affects public perception through the promotional pillar of the company. Which brings us to the 4 Ps, or the marketing mix, that's a very long-standing analysis tool to check if the company is well marketed. And as such, will provide us with a structure for this analysis in which I'm going to weave in things like a competitor analysis to highlight any differentiators or critical strengths that they might have along the way. Just because there are so many factors that affect both celebrity brands and also specifically haircare brands. So let's go back to the promotional aspect of it, because that timeline is still not quite finished. You see, after that initial teaser, it was a full 9 months before Beyoncé actually officially announced Cécred on Instagram with the caption, "Hair is sacred, the journey begins February 20th, and this old video of her mum's hair shop named Headliner. This is important for a few factors, because it tells us that instead of attempting to vie for a product-based differentiator against the market, i.e. having the best celebrity hair care product from a scientific standpoint, instead, their biggest selling factor will be her celebrity impact. This is why I mentioned Ivy Park previously, because in that, and also the House of Darion, it was the overvaluation of her celebrity factor and the lack of personal connection that was a major factor into both brands falling. Furthermore, whereas these brands were criticized for trying to depend on a celebrity factor, there was a lack of fan service in order to actively nurture that differentiator, meaning that there was a disconnect between the benefits sought by the consumers and the benefits delivered, which is a fancy way of saying that they weren't listening. In my Ivy Park video over on Understitch, I even give examples of how they could do exactly that, in which I discuss them using the idea of a beehive, bees, and honey imagery in order to subtly link it to her fans in an if you know manner that might not read to somebody that didn't know the brand. So, you can imagine my pride when honey imagery came up on the Cécred website, meaning it would be exactly this connector that the haircare line would use in order to give that fan service. And I'm not sure, as of writing the video, but it seems like it will be the brand's star product as well, offering somewhat of an added value in the product, even if honey in haircare is not necessarily novel. This is also furthered by factors like the link to her mum's salon in the marketing, which is also on the site, and the name of the brand Cécred being a portmanteau of Beyoncé and Cécred, giving another fan service nod. Of course, this too can be a weakness down the line, as this book states, as it can come across inauthentic sometimes, and we're seeing the same kind of complaints coming up already as it happens, like her appearing sparingly in her own ads or the product being unlikely to be made for all, as the promotion suggests, just because we all have different hair types. But considering it does directly target previous complaints, seemingly giving customers exactly the kind of parasocial connection that they would like from Beyoncé, for now, for the launch, it's undoubtedly a clever use of fan service. So in short, the promotion is very good. They announced it, they let us mull over and get excited, provided a personal connection, and then furthered the evidence of listening to their customer with fan service elements like using old footage of her in her mum's salon, a star ingredient, and the name, all of which attempt to dispel previous complaints, giving it a sense of viability that her previous companies simply didn't have. However, while the promotion is mostly well and good, these same factors also affect the product. The idea that Beyoncé was wearing Ivy Park was almost farcical to fans, and that became their biggest running complaint. But of course, that then brings into question if the public is to believe that Beyoncé herself actually uses these Cécred products. Of course, the truth of whether she does or doesn't use the products is unimportant, but it is the perception of if she would or does use the product that matters. If we can believe it, then it has the same effect to the consumer regardless. This brings me on to an argument that I saw early on. I really don't remember where, unfortunately, but it was that because she is known to wear wigs, does that invalidate a Beyoncé haircare product? And on top of that, does her unwillingness to acknowledge her penchant for wigs also invalidate the product? I.e., are we to believe that she actually shampoos her own fake hair? And I took the time to mull over this because I did have a few comments on it previously, and I really think it could go both ways. Because Beyoncé's fanbase really spans ethnic, cultural, and even socioeconomic lines, I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding in parts of her demographic that don't wear wigs of how wig wearers specifically, and a lot of how black wig wearers treat both their natural hair and their wigs. As it happens, back in the day I actually used to make wigs, and I know from experience that though we don't usually use shampoo on Kanekalon or otherwise plastic hair, instead I used to use dish soap, for human hair wigs such as we know that Beyoncé is wearing, it's actually quite an important step in order to get it clean. One doesn't wash them as regularly as hair from their own scalp, but it's still an important step. Now, do I believe Beyoncé washes her own wigs or even asks her helpers to use Cécred on said wigs? Obviously no, but given the promotional factor of how her mum used to own the hair salon, I believe that she knows how to wash said wigs. But the second point to this is that even if one does opt to wear wigs on a regular basis or even a daily basis, that doesn't mean one doesn't wash the hair underneath of the wig. Which again brings me to, do I believe Beyoncé washes her own hair? Honestly, sometimes I want to say no. In all the promotion, someone else is doing it. But I suppose she must do sometimes. There must be days when she wants that for herself. And it's that seed of doubt that makes the product believable. Will everyone believe it? No, and that's okay. But some will, and that's a foot in the door. However, that does connect to price, because even if one is to believe that she does on occasion wash her own hair, even if she doesn't wash her own wigs, am I then to believe that she washes her hair with a $30 to $38 shampoo? I'm not sure. I think she's probably on a more luxurious hair care routine personally, something more expensive than what I would consider to be a mid-priced shampoo. But saying that, there is an element to the pricing strategy that actually goes back into promotion, by which I mean that another complaint in her previous works was that the pricing was too high or was inflated too much because of the celebrity factor. And while of course the celebrity factor does add value, permitting a higher price point, because that has been an unnurtured factor in the past, it would have been far riskier to go for a higher price point if her fans are her initial target market, even if it does align a little bit more with the brand that we know of Beyoncé being this glamazon performer. And really this is quite clever. We know her main target market is her fan base because of factors we have talked about previously, and also because in the early product names they have things like the super fan bundle. So, by targeting to them, they're effectively getting free promotion as long as this target market is satisfied. They will be more than happy to promote the brand on her behalf on social media for free. So for that reason, a mid-price price point is fine. But this pillar is really where her competitors come into play. You see, most celebrity hair care lines have been mid-priced. Cindy Crawford's Meaningful Beauty is $49, Tracee Ellis Ross's Pattern Beauty is $45, Jennifer Aniston's Lola V is $29, Hayley Williams' Good Die Young is $26, Issa Rae's Sienna Naturals is $24, Jonathan Van Ness's JVN is $21, and there's of course several many more. As a result, the price point becomes nothing to write home about. It doesn't differentiate them from competitors by price. It's on the higher end, yes, but not prohibitively. I expect, unless the product is particularly bad, that customers will not be complaining about this price point, which seems to be exactly the point. While the price point to all of these brands is similar, their fame and fan service is not. To turn this into a perceptual map for competitor analysis, I've quantified each of these celebrities' fan bases by the use of Google Trends, so just Google searches, over the course of 2023 to plot where each celebrity brand sits with potential desirability and therefore price point. And as you can see, in comparison to the other celebrity brands that I could find, Beyoncé's average search rate is significantly higher than most of her competitors. Of course, this is only factoring in the searches for each celebrity, not the brand themselves, but this was chosen as 2023, firstly because Beyoncé's brand just didn't exist then, and secondly as it seems the intended critical strength of Cécred. Therefore, actually despite the mid-price point being nothing special, it's exactly that allows them to stand apart from their competition. That is, unless other major celebrities like Beyoncé get into haircare. However, again, though this is great for a launch, much as this book suggests, that too means that it has the point of weakness of the shiny new object effect. That is possible after a while that the products and the world building stop being desirable over their competitors as they lose that initial impact that had once made them successful. Of course, maybe that's okay because shampoo only costs cents on the dollar to make, and even in time, with lesser brand awareness, they can see themselves profiting just fine as long as they have a big blowout launch to bring massive brand awareness in the first place. But it's still a factor to consider nonetheless, especially when the packaging is brought into the picture. Because as you can see, this packaging is just beautiful. It's very trendy, it's got the rounded cap and the cylindrical bottle. It's very much of the moment, following that minimalism trend. Is that a bad thing? For launch, certainly not. But trends pass, and then a brand is forced to spend a lot of money to play catch-up for the rest of their existence. This is fine when it's a Kardashian brand. We as customers are well aware that they come and they go like the wind. But Beyoncé is a really long-standing entertainer. Many of us watching this video do not remember an entertainment industry without a big Beyoncé presence. She is, and has been for a very long time, the industry leader in music. So when her businesses fail, it's a real shock because we just don't expect that ill-fatedness from someone so revered. It's for this reason I believe the packaging to actually be a little ill-advised. Perhaps the brief that the designer was given was to make something that would be beautiful and desirable now. And if so, they did a great job because they are just so pretty, far nicer than most haircare bottles. But for longevity, I anticipate the need to redesign in the not-too-distant future, just because of this bubble top trend in cosmetics has been going on for a long time now, and the minimalism trend is just getting a little tired. Of course, this isn't on the designer, and also is just my speculation of how the cosmetic industry will change in the not-too-distant future, but perhaps the best way to make my point is to ask, if you saw Rare Beauty, or Rhode, or Alia launch a shampoo, is this not exactly the bottle that you would expect they would come up with, just maybe perhaps in a different color? However, while I say this, that's really the only negative thing I have to say so far about the brand launch when using the 3 areas of complaints that we've discussed in the 4 Ps. I also did run a SWOT test, so that's strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities, but I think it's a little self-explanatory given everything that we've gone over already. They're playing to their celebrity strengths, trying to rectify past weaknesses. Their weaknesses are in trendiness and authenticity. Their opportunities really are plentiful right now, given that she's currently the only buzzworthy major celebrity running in shampoo and hair care. And there's the obvious threats of competition, as high-profile celebrities could jump on it. However, it's exactly that competition that brings me onto the final P, place. Because in previous 4P analysis, we've often discussed place as the location one interacts or even buys said product, which it is. But in this case, firstly, I don't know their stockist yet, and secondly, their company seems to have another ace up their sleeves in one of my favorite areas of business: logistics. You see, in 2023, Beyoncé invested in building a hemp and honey farm, vertically integrating her business from the beginning in the manufacturing process. This has a chance to lower cost and have better quality control, sure, but actually again, this plays into promotion. While the logistical benefits help behind the scenes, making the margin widen, to the average Beyoncé fan, it adds even further value, as the brand seemingly is owned from farm to consumer by Beyoncé. Hell, even her mother, Tina Knowles, will be at the helm of this company, supposedly seeing over it all. Of course, this is all about perception. Whether it is entirely owned or controlled by the two women, we cannot definitively know, just as much as we cannot know if they're actually planning on using any of Beyoncé's own honey in the product. But perceiving is believing. But if we as consumers believe that that shampoo is produced on Beyoncé soil by happy Beyoncé farmers who supply happy Beyoncé formulists who send it on to happy Beyoncé bottling plants and distributors for Beyoncé fans to order on their Beyoncé products on the Beyoncé website, that's a very powerful attempt at adding value to the fan base through the supply chain and gives consumers the perception of a supply chain transparency that is so uncommon that honestly could even be a differentiator to other hair care lines that aren't celebrity owned. Do I believe all of this actually happens? Of course not. I'm sure several parts of it are outsourced labor, because frankly it would just be too expensive of a capital investment to immediately set all of this up without even a first sale. But do I believe a customer could believe it? Absolutely. And it's that perception that has power. Genuinely, all in all, in my opinion, it's an exceptionally strong brand launch, given everything that we've discussed. And though I'm not convinced just yet that the brand will still be with us decades down the line, for example, Ivy Park also had a very strong brand launch, it still has a very strong opening that could build the brand a consumer loyalty that will serve them well for many, many years to come. Haircare is a necessity after all. It's not like clothes, which we can come and go from. And I know that I didn't really mention it in the video, but haircare is something people tend to stick to. If you like the product, you tend to keep buying it. The chance of a repeat purchase is quite high in this sector. So unless Beyoncé has some major scandal and all of her brands get boycotted somewhere down the future, there's a good possibility that this brand is made to last. Thank you so much for watching this video. For more like this, please do like and subscribe. For videos just like this one, but about fashion brands, please subscribe to my fashion channel Understitch. And a very special thank you goes to my patrons over on Patreon, some of whose names are on the screen now.